welcome back. If you needed any more proof that the United Kingdom is currently being managed by a class of people who actively despise the concept of the nation-state, look no further than this. We are watching the wholesale liquidation of British sovereignty, piece by piece to the highest bidder. First, it was the Chagos Islands, strategically vital territory handed over to a Chinese ally for absolutely nothing. Now we are seeing the green light given for a Chinese super embassy right in the heart of London, on the site of the historic Royal Mint. You honestly couldn't make up the symbolism if you tried. The place where we used to make our money is being sold to the communist regime that now owns our debt. Let's get into this clip, because the silence from the government ministers when asked basic security questions is deafening.
Let's get the thoughts of our panel this evening. We've got GB News contributor Will Kingston, Tory MP for Tatton, Esther McVeigh, and journalist Jonathan Liss. Esther, I'm going to come to you first on this, because you were actually in the chamber today.
I was.
Talking about the Chinese embassy,
yeah.
weren't you? What's your views, then, on the fact that he's approved it today?
Well, it's a disgrace. And Dan Jarvis, who had the misfortune to be the minister who was replying to this, I think was squirming throughout because he couldn't really answer any of the questions. It was lots of waffle, so much so that the deputy speaker said, could we have shorter answers? And I then got to ask my question. I thought, I'll make them all yes and no answers, as did the rest of the MPs then in the House. So I said, the security services, do they have any concerns whatsoever? Yes or no? Couldn't answer it. The next question, Luke Evans, does this make it safer for the British public or not to have this embassy, yes or no? Couldn't answer. Jim Allister said, was this already predetermined? Yes or no? Sarah Bull said this is a Trojan horse coming into our country. Yes or no? John Lamont, if we get any evidence that there is any form of surveillance going on in this embassy, can we close it down? Yes or no? None of these could be answered, which make us all wonder, why is it going ahead when we know that China has been a threat? All the stuff you've just talked on before about the spy. You also know that it supports Russia over the illegal war against Ukraine. We know it's spying on MPs. It's sanctioned MPs. It is a threat to our democracy. And yet we have given them a prime spot in London, which I believe this was something that Beijing, President Xi said, this is absolutely fundamental in our relationship. The first phone call he had with Starmer, he wanted this embassy. He'd paid £255 million for it back in 2018, and he was determined to get it. Consolidate 7 other embassies, so they already have embassies, to get this one. Why and why there? And I'm afraid we all think that it shouldn't be happening. And Labour, and I think it's because they've bust the budget. We've had 2 duff budgets. We're now impoverished because of Labour. Reeves went over last year, got 600 million from China, and that's what we think they are. They are beholden to a few bob crumbs and are now kowtowing to China.
Let's just pause there and let what Esther McVeigh just said sink in. She listed question after question. Is it safe? Is there surveillance? Is this a Trojan horse? And the Labour minister stood there and couldn't give a simple yes or no. Why? Because we all know the answer is yes, and they know that we know. This isn't just about a building, this is about the total subversion of our national security apparatus. We are talking about the Chinese Communist Party, a regime that is actively hostile to Western civilization, that spies on its own citizens, and that is currently flooding the West with fentanyl and buying up our strategic infrastructure. And Keir Starmer's government is rolling out the red carpet for them to build a fortress directly opposite the Tower of London.
Think about the arrogance of Beijing here. President Xi demands this specific spot, the Royal Mint, as a condition of the relationship. It is a humiliation ritual. They are telling us we own your history and we will build our surveillance hub on top of it. And what does Starmer do? He folds, he capitulates, because that is what this Labour government is designed to do, manage the decline of Britain. They claim they need the investment, that we're impoverished. But at what cost? You don't sell the keys to your front door just because you're a bit short on cash, unless you have no intention of defending the house anymore. This is the behaviour of a government that has already surrendered mentally. They don't view China as a threat, they view China as the new management. When McVeigh says they are kowtowing, she's being polite. This is a strategic surrender of the capital city to a hostile foreign power, approved by a Prime Minister who seems more interested in pleasing global elites than protecting the British people on the street who will be walking past this nest of spies every single day.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's borderline treason, this, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, and I don't disagree with anything that Esther has said. Even if you do put the national security concerns to one side, and I think they're very real and very obvious, the optics of this are terrible. Giving away a prime piece of land in a historic British building, the former Royal Mint, to what is the greatest geopolitical foe of this country shows what I think Trump correctly has highlighted is this utter complacency of the United Kingdom and Europe towards the threat from China. It is the byline that runs through all of the stories you mentioned before. Chagos, Greenland, the rhetoric from the high and mighty at Davos today.
Yeah.
They all underestimate what is a very real and very growing threat from the Chinese. And until we get our heads out of the sand, I fear that that threat is only going to grow more and more.
And we played that clip earlier. I don't know if I'm able to bring it up in a second or not, but it was President Trump being asked that question at a press conference today about Chagos, right? So he has said about that it's an act of great stupidity. And then he said, I don't know why the UK are doing it. Maybe they need the money. Wait until he finds out. Wait until he finds out we're paying Mauritius to give it away. I mean, it's absolutely catastrophic. You look at the Chagos surrender deal and you look at him approving the Chinese embassy today. Does Keir Starmer realise this is why people hate it?
I don't think this is why people hate him, Patrick.
There's too many other reasons.
There are other reasons for that. First of all, can I just say, in terms of Greenland, Will, the idea that China is somehow more of a threat than the United States is completely laughable. China is nothing to do with Greenland, has no designs of Greenland whatsoever.
This is your
The United States is the only power that has a design on Greenland. They're saying quite openly.
We're not talking about Greenland.
Fine. But Will mentioned it, I thought it was important to counter that point. But look, in terms of the Chinese embassy, I am not a security expert, and neither are you, and any of you, with the greatest respect. MI5 are security experts, and they've said on the record that they are not concerned about the position of the embassy. They can mitigate risks. You can't mitigate all risks. China, let's face it, is going to be surveilling people no matter where their embassy is. So if MI5 is happy with it, then...
I don't think they are happy with it.
Well, if they're not concerned, but unless...
And that's not true either. And it was wonderful when Sir Julian Lewis, who was the former chairman of the Intelligence and Security Committee, spoke and said mitigating, mitigation, it just covers all things. They are not happy. They're trying to make the best of a bad lot, but they are concerned. And I think for us to pretend that we can... I don't know, cover any eventuality when we don't know how great the technology is of China. We only know technology today. We don't know it going forward. You don't know what their rooms are going to be used for. No, mitigating as best they can is what they're doing.
Look, Esther,
so that does not.
Esther, I have my own. And I've said, I have plenty of scepticism about this embassy. If I hadn't sort of read anything that MI5 would have said, I said on the balance of probabilities, it looks like a bad idea. But I was deferring to what MI5 was saying on this particular issue. Do you think that if MI5 had real, very, very serious concerns about this, they would A, have said so to the government, and B, the government would have listened to that and said, we're not going to do it? Because I don't think that Starmer is a traitor, I'm sorry. I don't think that he is glib about national security in the slightest. I think there are many, many concerns about Starmer.
That is... He did.
We're doing something that no one on this channel seems to do, Patrick, which is actually to stand up to Trump when he sort of decided to wage economic war.
Sorry, he hasn't actually done that, has he? He's not actually threatening any reciprocal trade issues in the tariffs in the
saying that for the first time, he said categorically that Trump is wrong about something. Now, did it go far enough? Absolutely not. But he was right to counter it.
Hugh Grant in Love Actually.
But we can't.
Starmer's problem is people could be talking, but he doesn't listen. His intelligence services are giving him advice, just like business people have about the economy and businesses like economists have to Rachel Reeves. They don't listen, and that's why the public as a whole can't stand them.
I think what's happening here, right, is that obviously we're being led by international human rights lawyers, Starmer and Hermer, and they know that they're only going to be in politics for a fixed amount of time. And after that amount of time, they're going to go back and crack on doing what they were doing before. And they want to keep their Rolodex of clients happy, don't they, I think?
Well, that looks like what they're going to do. It looks like, you're quite right, they've only got a short shelf life, and it's so terrible it's getting shorter, therefore what is their career afterwards? And this will be it, they'll go back to their old clients.
Even if there isn't a commercial motivation for them, it goes to show that their priorities are to this sort of global international order ahead of a belief in the nation state that they are meant to put before any other.
Or they're just thick.
Yeah, mate.
They're not. They're not.
I think
they're not. They're certainly not. They're not.
Reality is a lot more sinister than that, and everyone should be watching this very, very closely, because there comes a point where there's a pattern, isn't there, in the way that a prime minister behaves, and you have to start asking serious questions about who he works for.
See, Esther suggests they might be thick, but Patrick and Will hit the nail on the head right before that. It is far more sinister than incompetence. We're being ruled by international human rights lawyers, Starmer and his cronies, who do not believe in the concept of the nation-state. To them, Britain isn't a homeland with a history and a people to protect. It's just an economic zone in a global international order. When you understand that, everything makes sense. Why give away Chagos? Because international law says so. Why let China build a mega spy base in London? Because the rules-based order requires free trade and diplomatic niceties, even with your enemies. They are prioritising their reputation on the cocktail circuit in Davos and Brussels over the security of the realm. Patrick's point about the Rolodex of clients is crucial. These people view their time in government not as a service to the king or country, but as an audition for their next high-paying gig at a global consultancy firm or a UN NGO. They're stripping the copper wiring out of the walls of Britain before they move out. They know that if they stand up to China, if they put Britain first, they lose their standing in that globalist club, so they sell us out. They verify the Chinese surveillance state within our borders because they see themselves as citizens of the world, not citizens of Britain. It is a betrayal of the highest order, hidden behind the boring grey language of planning permission and diplomatic protocols. It's a pattern of behaviour that is becoming impossible to ignore. From the surrender of territory in the Indian Ocean to the surrender of real estate in London, the message is clear. Britain is for sale, and the current management doesn't care who buys it. They're dismantling the country from the top down. My question to you is this: if the government won't even say no to a Chinese spy fortress in our capital because they're afraid of offending Beijing, what makes you think they'll say no when China demands control over our data, our energy, or our supply chains? Are we even a sovereign country anymore?